say this is the third video.
Okay. So
No.
you can start.
Yep.
I was in a number of those youth camps at different locations that this organization you had, and at one point I was at a youth camp which was not too far from Brussels, and I even made arrangements to leave the youth camp and go to Brussels, and a kind Belgian lady that I had befriended before took me to the convent where my mother left my sister to see my sister. And when we got there, we learned that she did not adapt very well to life in the content. I mean, based on the background and the things that have been happening to her between the language problem and her age and living in one organization, then with the parents, and then in the, so she was turned over to a Catholic priest who was instrumental in placing her with a Belgian family. All this time, the names were changed and pretended that we were Christian children,
Yeah.
Belgium, and she was fortunate in that the family that she was placed with took her in, treated her well, enrolled her in school, where she did very well.
What was the name of that family?
The name of the family, the family lived in a city in Belgium called Namur, Namur, and the name was Cheppe, Cheppe, and
Considered family.
at one point when I was transferred to another youth camp, which was near Namur, about 15 or 20 miles from Namur, I took a trip to go to Namur to see that priest who placed my sister, and the records were so mixed up that he couldn't tell me where she was placed, because he was instrumental in placing a lot of Jewish children, and I made all that trip for 15 miles, and he even took me to the Monsignor for the area, who I was allowed to kiss the guy's ring and so on. But he promised to keep looking where she was. Eventually, he did tell me that he had located her.
Do you remember the name of the priest?
Which priest?
The one who placed your sister.
His name was Father Andre, Andre. That's what he was named.
Yeah.
He's been written up in different books. And he's been honored in Jerusalem, along with a lot of other people who've done good things. At any rate, I didn't get to see my sister until after the liberation, when I was able to go to Namur again and stay with the people overnight and see my sister. At any rate, I forget exactly where I was.
I guess you were living. You were
were
going from different camp
youth home
to different
youth
camp.
Yeah. I was at different camps, and
Was there a constant threat that the Germans might come and be looking for Jews that were hiding?
yeah, well, that was one of the risks, because some of the monitors who took care of the young boys and children similar to me, some of them also tried to evade work in Germany, which was obligatory for them because of their age and so on. So it was, and the Catholic organization that I was with, they in one of their kitchens, they employed a number of Jewish women, all under different names, as Belgian citizens and so on. It was an underground organization. It was a legitimate organization that had an underground element that went with it. At any rate, here it's 1942. No, when did the no, not 94? By now it's already the middle of 1944. 1944, and one of the youth camps that I had been in at one point, we learned was raided by the Germans.
Wow.
And some Jewish children there and some of the personnel were arrested. And now here it is the middle of 1944. So when the priest who was the head of the youth camp where I was at the time, which was in Dinant, Belgium, D-I-N-A-N-T, when he heard what happened to the one in Chaltén, Belgium, he placed all the Jewish boys who were in the camp where I was at that time with different people in the vicinity of Dinant, because they were afraid that they would come and check out the youth camp where I was. And coincidentally, another Jewish young man, my age, at that point we were like 15 and a half or 16. In 1944, how old was I?
Was there only boys there?
15 and a half, close to 16. And the other boy, he was from Antwerp, Belgium, and he was in that youth camp with me along with other Jewish boys. He and I were placed with a farmer in the vicinity of Dinant, and this farmer gave us employment. He had fields growing grains and different things, and he had us. He let us sleep in one of his barns, and we had meals in one of his houses where his help was being, or his family was eating, and we used to patrol his farmlands because the grain that was growing, when it fell on the floor, people who had or had low income or were hungry and so on, they were allowed to pick up grains that had fallen on the floor, but what they were not allowed to do was cut the grains that were
On the stalk?
on the what?
On the stalk?
They were grown.
Yeah, the stalks and so on. So this friend of mine and I used to patrol his lands to make sure that the local population, the poor local, does not cut the grain from. I mean, it was all right for them to pick, which was on the floor, but they make sure they did not take the grain. So, and this coincided with the invasion of the American English troops in France. And fortunately, I think the invasion took place in June 1944. And by September, the Americans had broken through the fortifications that the Germans had put in place and liberated Paris and come in. And by the time September came around, the Americans had taken over close to most of Belgium, except for the part that bordered Germany or somewhere, because that's where they had the Battle of the Bulge in December and so on. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, in September, when Brussels was freed, and I went back to Brussels and left the Catholic organization, and by then some of the Jewish.
So how old were you when they were liberated?
I was going to be 15 and a half, 16.
Yeah, November.
So I went to Brussels, Germany, and
Brussels.
and I had missed so much schooling that putting me in a class, putting me in 5th grade at age 15 and a half,
Yeah.
didn't make any sense anymore. And some of the Jewish organizations started to organize, and they tried to,
Where were you living?
huh?
Where were you living in Brussels?
Well, for the first few days, I was living with the woman who sheltered my mother until my mother was arrested.
Oh, the woman across the street,
Yeah,
the old neighbor.
and,
The
a
old-
former neighbor. Yeah,
Do you remember her name?
no,
Okay.
I don't remember
Is
her
she the
name.
one who gave you the ring that you wear all the time?
No.
That ring that's on your finger?
No, that's the lady. The ring that I have is I got from the lady who took me to to the orphanage where we thought my sister was.
What ring is this?
Huh?
It's his initials
What ring is this?
on his
Here.
finger.
I'll show it to you later.
Yeah.
At
Go
any
sit
rate,
next to Lou. You can sit next to Lou. Go sit next to him.
at any rate, I was close to 16, and I was thinking I would try and get a job, and I hadn't really worked other than patrolling the fields. I never had worked and so on. Some people, maybe older than myself, were working for American institutions or the American Army. They had just taken over, and at any rate, somehow the Jewish organization was trying to reorganize and get things straightened out, but they sent me back to the Belgium organization to stay overnight, to have meals and so on, and they got me a job to work.
But did you stay with this Jewish, like an orphanage you were in?
What?
You were in a Jewish, like an orphanage? When you
Well,
were
it's not an orphanage. We didn't even know we were orphans at that time. They got me a job to give me for future, and there was a guy who was making orthopedic shoes for people who had problems walking or had it was like a shoemaker, but he made shoes for patients who needed special shoes, and I was working for this guy. It was an entry level job, and the Jewish organization, with the cooperation of the Belgium organization, that I went back to the Belgium organization to stay with them, with a home that they had in Brussels itself, and I started working until about the end of 1944. By that time, the Jewish organization had rented some places that they took care of Jewish children, including young Jewish people in situations similar to mine. There was some, until perhaps several months into 1945, when they were able to separate the Jewish young men where I was, between those who had the potential to go back to high school or who did not miss classes and so on, and those who could work. And then they took me out, or they allowed me to go out of this Belgium Christian organization again somewhere in the spring of 1945, and I was in a Jewish home for young men until they separated the Jewish young men between those where the potential was still they could go to school by either knowledge or age, and those who had missed so many years who were working. And I was then transferred to a Jewish organization that housed about 20 or 30 people in my condition who had jobs.
So you'd missed enough school that you'd missed so much school that they weren't able to put you back into the educational system,
right.
Sixth
but
grade.
but that you would be in a program to do some sort of work.
Yeah, and somehow they also, I don't know why, but they allowed me or encouraged me to stop becoming a shoemaker and they placed me to work for a Jewish guy who was trying to reestablish a textile business. He had a connection, probably from before the war, with an English textile company, and everything was scarce and black market and so on, and he was able to get English fabrics when other merchants or wholesalers could not get English fabrics. And I was working in a house where he was selling fabrics that he was importing, even though nobody was able to get things. And during that time, I was making connections with people I knew who knew my uncle in New York, and the uncle was making connection with other people and put into motion different activities to bring my sister and me over to New York.
When did you reconnect with your sister?
Oh, I reconnected with my sister shortly after we were liberated in the middle of September 44. I visited her at the home of the people who took care of her. And these people, I'm still in touch with relatives of the people because a lot of them have died in the meantime.
Yeah.
Both the parents who took care of my, both people who take care of my sister, they're not alive anymore.
And the obituary, her name
I
is-
corresponded with
the family.
one of their sons for many years, and he died. And now I'm corresponding or
With his
sending
daughter.
New Year's cards to
His daughter. Isn't
to
it?
his daughter. You know.
Where is he? Or was she? Where's she?
Belgium,
In Belgium still.
yeah. This-
Belgian people, Belgium, yeah.
The
And
sisters really
so,
touched a lot.
unlike survivors, I don't have the numbers on my arm.
Yeah.
I was not in a concentration camp, but I lost both of my parents,
When did you?
and I
find-
was in constant danger of being arrested and being deported and being moved around, and and wherever we were, as good a care as they gave us, things were rationed and things were difficult. It's not that we had lavish meals or anything like this, but the people who took care of us, they did a good job.
When was it that you found out about your parents?
Huh?
At what point did you find out or realize or know
Well,
with some certainty that your parents?
in
were
December
gone?
'44, when I was in Brussels, there were posting lists of survivors who came out of the concentration camps, who were in Germany, who were trying to get people, and I kept going looking for names or lists to see if my mother survived, if my father survived, and eventually we learned that my mother died sometime in 1945, and my father probably died sometimes in 44.
How'd you learn?
Huh?
How did you learn that?
There's
Just
Jewish
those-
organizations
He was 42 in 2 months. He was gassed.
who try to help survivors.
Find information.
Yeah. I don't know. This is not complete, but this is my own problems are, if anything, is contacting the relatives in the United States, getting the papers, getting my sister and me to join our relatives in the United States. And when we came in the United States, my relatives, the uncle by that time was in his middle or late 50s. He was not in a position to establish a business or anything. He barely was making a living, and we stayed with him. My sister stayed with him.
When
I
did you
stayed
come,
with him.
What year was it that you came to the United States?
Yeah,
When?
I came in December 1946.
18 with a 6th grade education.
What?
Go sit next to him, Sandra.
Why?
Let's get you can be on the video too.
No, because I heard some.
What else of
And
interest?
When they came here,
Sit down and tell us.
she came in 8 years, his sister was 8 years and 2 months. And I had friends who came, you know, and one of my friends said, she's a year older than me. They put them a year behind. His sister was 8 and 2 months. They didn't put her in 2nd grade, they didn't put her in 3rd, they put her in 4th grade.
His sister. Yeah.
She's brilliant, but it must have been a good school that they
No,
sent
she
her
went to a Catholic school
In Belgium.
run by
In
the
Belgium.
nuns
It must have been
in Belgium, and
But
she
she
came
absorbed
here,
that,
and my uncle took her to the school in the Bronx in New York
these
to enroll her, and the principal
She
of
knew
that
no English.
school in America interviewed her and placed her in the class that he thinks that she should be, and he
It was 4th grade.
So where did you and your sister stay when you came to the U.S.?
The aunt and uncle had a 1-bedroom apartment. He slept in the living room, and his 8-year-old sister slept in the bedroom with them
For how long?
all the time. But
What
when
do you
he
mean?
was taken in the army, that she slept in the living room. Yeah, they took him to the Korean army, didn't make him a citizen or anything.
what do you mean anything?
Well, I mean, they didn't.
No,
But he came here with 6th grade education.
6th grade.
Yeah.
How did I get 6th
You
grade?
told me you had 6th grade education when you came here. Then you went to learn the English, got a job, and went to.
Oh yeah, in Belgium I
he
went to the
skipped
4th
two-
grade, 5th grade,
Yeah,
6th
he
grade.
skipped all of junior high, went to Stuyvesant High School at night, and then started college at night with working in the day.
So you were living with your aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
Huh?
You
your
lived
aunt
with
and
your
uncle.
aunt and uncle.
You were living with your aunt and uncle, yeah.
Until
Until you. Army took it.
1950.
Yeah, when the army took it.
Then I was drafted for 2 years.
But the family that got in touch with the people, this is the ones who brought him in Belgium at the beginning. Their daughter was his age. We're still in touch with her. She lives near Baltimore. And when she comes down to visit one of her children, we get together. Yeah. Which is, if I ever say anything, it says from Susie. That's her. Yeah. But then he was in the went to City College then, and then was taken in the army. He came out and continued. He worked. We kept having children, and he was going to school at night and work in the day. But he skipped all the junior high.
How was it to then be drafted to go to war to Korea?
And one of the guys he knew was killed in Korea, wasn't even a citizen. They came, you know.
No,
I don't
How was
know.
it to then all of a sudden
no,
get drafted?
I was in the United States. Upon arrival, I declared
Korean.
desire to become Americans,
Become a
and
citizen.
I was of the age suitable to be drafted.
Yeah, they draft. He became a citizen around the time your mother was born, I think. But can you imagine? Because the
Where
Second
were you
World War,
originally
they
a citizen?
just
Were you
What?
originally a citizen of Germany?
My parents did not become citizens of Germany because, unlike my uncle, they came to Germany later. Like I explained, the uncle was in Germany, was freed from a German prisoner of war place in 1918, and at that time he became afterwards a German citizen. By the time my parents came to Germany, my father and my mother, that was already in the mid-20s, and
father was
they
from
never
Poland.
became we were in Germany were stateless.
But your father was from
Stateless
Poland.
in
Where
Germany.
was your mother from again?
Vilna.
Vilna.
And what about you? By birth, were you
By birth,
eligible
you
for
were
citizenship?
I don't
or
think
no?
in the European countries.
They
I don't
do
know.
that.
The child does not automatically become a citizen by virtue of birth. I think it's more complicated than that.
I thought it was in my wallet, but it must be in the safety deposit, in the box that's locked up. Because I have the card where they gave him in Belgium a new name and everything when he was 15. It's got his picture,
You have those cards. What was your new name in Belgium?
Louis. Louis, was it Louis? Louis Singer.
Singer, Singer, but they pronounce it Saint-Gé.
You were Louis Saint-Jay?
Yeah.
And Estelle, that wasn't her name. Her name was Burka Esther. I guess the people who took care of her gave her.
We were supposed to
They
call my
gave-
sister today.
Well, we'll call her.
I haven't
another
spoken
day.
to her.
Yeah, but they couldn't call her Esther
Mm-hmm.
and be hidden.
No.
So they must have given her. Well, it was Burka. They couldn't give her either.
No.
So I guess these people called her Estelle, and that stuck. You know.
So she was with them from ages, what, 4 to 8?
Yes. Yeah.
She was with them
Yeah.
from
to
4
Yeah, till eight.
until
You
December
So she was. Her birth was
1946.
September. She was 8 years
Uh,
and 2 months.
They were willing to, until we were able to get the papers and the affidavits and to come to the United States, my sister was with them.
Did she want
Even after,
They called her their niece.
Did she want to stay with them? Did they want her to stay with?
they
Or
they
was-
took her in when she was 4. They treated her like their little girl. They enrolled her in school
Yeah, but why didn't they?
with
Why,
a
I keep asking why he didn't leave her there and,
and
come there himself.
they were like parents to her.
Yeah.
Did she want to stay there, or it was just?
She didn't know any different.
Yeah, but here at 9 months old, she was torn away from her mother.
Yeah.
And then she's thrown. It came at 9 months old in an orphanage. Then she's with her parents like from 2 to 4, and then she.
When
I think she had a rough
I have newspaper clippings. I don't know where they are now, but when the one who acted like her mother when she died
Yeah.
in her 80s
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
My
no
sister-
obituary.
flew to Namur for the
Funeral.
funeral, and she's listed as part of the family of the like the daughters and the
Oh,
son,
Shep, yeah.
and my sister's name is listed as part of the family.
And then when she was 16, the aunt and uncle died within months of each other. She was again alone. She stayed with us she graduated high school at 16. Stayed with us that summer, but then she went to New York and was at a boarding house because she wasn't 18. She was 17 when she left us. And she went to work in the day and school at night. She graduated college on her own. And she had some top good jobs too.
No.
She with Playboy, with different magazines, and she was the editor of what's his name's book, who she couldn't stomach. The one working with, in my mind, who's the one who was?
She
Yes.
admired her. What are you talking
No,
about?
no. There was one person she had to edit his book.
Oh, the guy who was vice president
Yeah.
for Nixon.
Nixon, I couldn't remember.
Nixon
My
had
mind
a
is
vice
not what it
president. What's his
was.
name? He was
Yeah, I can't
disgraced.
Gerald Ford.
Huh?
Spiro Agnew?
Agnew. Was it
Agnew.
Yeah.
And
And
Agnew
she hated
wrote,
having
wrote
lunches with him. Or
Agnew
anything.
wrote
Stand them.
a book or a novel or something
she edited
after
it.
he was disgraced. And I think my sister edited
She hated when she had to meet with him,
She hated him. It's funny.
but she was.
Have you ever been back to Belgium or Europe?
I've
Yeah,
been
we
back-
did. We went with the elder hospital. When we moved here, do you remember? Your mother didn't understand. We don't bother. It was during Passover. We took an elder hostel to London, and then it took us through the Channel to Bruges, and then to Brussels, and he showed me where he lived in Brussels. Yeah, we went back there where he was working.
Did you see any of the people you knew back in Brussels, or were you able, were you able to look up anybody?
one fellow who was hidden where I was hidden, we contacted him while we were in Brussels, and
Yeah,
we
yeah,
visited
saw
him
in as well. We
briefly.
Opal.
Huh?
You're still sending him Christmas cards.
No, he
Opal?
died.
Yeah, but you're sending to.
I've exchanged
She-
Christmas
Like,
cards
she may
with
not
his
be
wife.
alive. I
Not
didn't get one
Christmas.
from her. It's not. She was Jew. Yeah, New Year
Hanukkah,
cards.
New Year's, yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't get anything back from her this year. I wonder if she's still alive. Yeah, we stopped. I remember now. We stopped to see them. Yeah.
How was it to go back?
What?
How was it to go
How
back?
was it to go back?
Yeah.
How was it? I don't
Yeah,
know.
it seems he did all
Life
right.
goes on, and you are busy with present problems, and you have.
But we were away the first Seder night. Uncle Scott came from Richmond to pick us up at the Miami airport. Your mother was fit to be tied. How could you do this? I said, who looked to see it was going to be Passover? So that night we took Scott, the first Seder night, we took him to a steak place around here. She was not happy.
What are you talking about?
Estelle Iwasi. Scott picked us up from Miami from the airport. It was the first Saturday night, and we took him out to dinner. It was late. I didn't want to go run it. Yeah. You don't remember?
No.
Well, I
Anything
do.
else you think would be important to know about your story?
What?
Is
Well,
there
what else
anything
about
else
your
that
story? He
you?
can't hear so good.
Is there anything? I think we're
Anything
coming
could
to
add to
the
it?
probably close to the end of the memory we
Oh,
have
but
on the.
When he
if there's any-
graduated high school with a gold seal, even though he didn't have junior high, and he was working in the day.
Wow. But is there anything else about your life or your story
Yeah.
that
when
would be
you were
important
in
for
Europe
us
and
to
all.
know? That you would want us to know?
Anything else?
Or that maybe Josh and Zachary would want to.
Well,
know
at one
later on.
point,